I'll use the universal greeting.
Universal greeting?
Ba weep grana weep nitty-bum.
Ba weep grana weep nitty-bum?
Ba weep grana weep nitty-bum.
Hello everybody and welcome to Action and Adventure, the Hasbro Universe podcast. I'm your host Daniel.
And I'm your other host Callum.
And today we only have one comic for you, but it is a comic that we have been looking forward to all year ever since, June, when that First Strike number 0 issue came out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But that First Strike 0 issue that appeared literally out of nowhere one day.
Yes. But the Visionaries are here. They are here to take Cybertron in Transformers vs. Visionaries, or the Transformers vs. the Visionaries, or Visionaries vs. the Transformers. It's had 5 different titles at this point.
Yeah, I didn't. What's kind of in this year of the final issue?
Let's see.
Transformers versus Visionaries.
Yeah.
So, matching the cover, I guess, is the official title.
Alright, so yes. So yes, Transformers versus Visionaries. A book that has been
talked about a lot.
Yeah, talked about a lot. It certainly has been talked about. So there's really no news to discuss with this issue, so I think we might as well just jump right in, and afterwards we'll do a little ranking. Sound good?
Yeah.
So, I feel like there's one thing that with this issue we have to talk about. I mean, it's the thing, but I don't think we should talk about it first, because that one thing has overshadowed the entirety of this book. And I think to the detriment of a lot of people's reading experiences. So first off, I want to say, as someone who buys the physical copies, this is actually a really well done cover. I got the cover A, which has Viralina attacking Ironhide, but it's it's got
the Pico one, right?
Yes, but it's actually got it's raised. The title is raised. It's glossy. It's a really, really nice cover, and I'm a sucker for a fancy raised cover, quite frankly. It really was something that appealed to me when I got the book. And
so is it like the title and stuff that's going to be stamped?
Oh yeah. It's just slightly raised. It's not like super raised. It's just slightly but if you run it over, it has a texture to it.
Nice.
Yeah. It actually follows along the shadow. The shadow is not raised, but the green part of the title is. So. Yeah, I almost have
fancy.
to. Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of bummed though. It's because if they were going to do something fancy for the cover of the book, shouldn't they have done a hologram? Yeah, I mean, but yeah. And not only that, but also Viralina and Ironhide, that part of them is also raised.
Yeah.
So it's you can just kind of run your hand over it, and it's nice and glossy, and there's texture to the little column of color behind Viralina on the main cover. So so it's really nice covers. I'm actually really, and then Ironhide is all smooth and all that. So it's it's nice, texture to the cover.
Yeah, that's impressive. They're sort of splashing out on it, I guess. Actually, it's more so even given they haven't done that for any of the sort of big kind of tentpole event books. Oh
no, they didn't do it for Revolution. They didn't do. So yeah.
Now you've said that, I am mourning that it's not a holographic cover. I mean, I dread to think how much that would end up costing.
Oh yeah, I would have had to pay at like $7 for it. Like, so that's the thing. It's normal price, $3.99. But
I think it was the holograms that helped make the Visionaries toy line sort of not viable, wasn't it? The cost of it.
I mean, but you've seen what Marvel and DC have done with their whole like lenticular covers. Do something like that. It would be cool.
I've seen plenty of those littering shelves. My old comic shop now. I don't have one anymore.
You could literally, you don't even have to do the whole cover. Literally, just do the like have a Visionaries character like stand there, and like boom, it's just on their chest plate or the whatever or the little whatever thing, because it's not really a chest plate anymore. It's just like a shoulder pad
thing,
breast insignia thing. But enough, enough about the cover. Let's
the
get
issue,
into the story. So, of course, the story follows up on First Strike. Features the Visionaries are now, the Spectral Knights, the Darkling Lords, working together in New Prismos, teaming up, and trying to navigate the survival of the rest of Prismos. And of course, the Transformers are also there, and our cast is a pretty. I like the cast that we have. It's pretty much all people who were either who are all Cybertron based, and mostly Till All Are One characters. In fact, pretty much all Till All Are One characters. Ironhide is there primarily. Wheeljack is there as the scientist who doesn't believe magic is real. He thinks it's just science they don't understand. Breakdown. But yeah, Breakdown officially getting his name said in comics for the first time. And I should clarify for our listeners who haven't followed this, we're referring to Prime Breakdown, not G1 Breakdown, who has been named plenty of times. But yeah, Prime Breakdown from Velocitron. And Cup! Good old Cup. So, we have a bit of a Revolutionaries connection, not just in terms of the Talisman and Merklin, who was technically in Revolutionaries as Garrison Krieger.
And the art.
Oh yeah, and Fico Ossio. On the topic of art, I want to go ahead and say I was disappointed when Sebastian Chang wasn't announced to be coloring this issue, because his colors worked so well with Fico's, I thought, during Revolution and Revolutionaries. But actually, David Garcia Cruz did surprise me, and he actually does work really well with Fico's lines. I actually I really liked their merging styles on this. It worked very well, in my opinion.
Oh no, yeah, I totally agree. I had been hesitant as well. I think because. Yeah, I feel Garcia Cruz has done some sort of some fill-in work and stuff on IDW Hasbro stuff recently, and I remember not being kind of the keenest on it. I think he colours Ron Joseph's pages in Revolutionaries 8, and I remember not being keen on it, but it works really well with Fico's lines. Because Ron Joseph's stuff is reasonably kind of ink heavy. It's got a sort of a bit of sort of ink heavy in a sort of retro-y kind of way. I always feel Ron Joseph stuff.
Yeah.
But Fico's lines are a bit kind of lighter and kind of, and they kind of, I think they work better with it works best with kind of Garcia Cruz's palette compared to the other stuff I've seen in coloring. It comes out looking really nice with the issue. Yeah. He
definitely brings a vibrant color that works for both the Visionaries and the Transformers. So
I think it's very kind of saturated sort of, and lots of use of kind of coloured lighting as well, which I like.
Oh yeah.
Kind of when stuff is glowing and kind of doing kooky things, it sort of everyone is kind of lit accordingly and sort of it is a very good showing in both from the art in this issue, both lines and colours.
And like you said, that page with Merklin, kind of washed out in the blue light of that pool of.
Oh yeah, no, I was looking at that one just a second. That's a great example of the lighting being done very nicely.
Yeah, it really is. So Callum, as far as story goes, what did you think of the story?
I think it's a good story, but it is kind of weirdly hampered by the fact that I feel pretty confident in saying that, Mags Visaggio did not have the full details of how much Visionaries setup was going to be at the end of First Strike. Because there are some weird sort of... We have gone from the end of First Strike, where kind of Merklin kind of creates a new Prismos and kind of cackles a bit and then sort of retreats off inside it, to... We've now jumped immediately to all the Visionaries are there, and Merklin, they've kind of established relationships with the Transformers, and Merklin is kind of being held prisoner as a result of that. And I do wonder, kind of, as someone who's been reading like everything, I'm sort of reasonably able to take it in my stride, but I do kind of worry that the person picking this up without having read First Strike may kind of have been a bit overwhelmed in terms of the amount of kind of, it feels like it expects you to already know. I don't know. It's odd.
I can say from anecdotal evidence. There's someone at my comic shop who was a big fan of Mags's works, work on Kim and Kim and Quantum Dreams Are Go, and had never read a Transformers comic in her life. Picked this up, and she told me, "Oh my gosh, it was so good. I loved it. I had, and she said she didn't really have a problem. It was kind of one of those things. She was able to jump in. She knew there was stuff that she had missed, but she was able to jump in and didn't feel too lost. So at least according to her. I mean, this is one person, but it is kind of it was something I was like, oh, that's cool for me as someone who's been reading these books for years. To get that kind of anecdote from someone who hasn't been reading anything. I personally I'll agree with you there. It really, and who knows, maybe later issues will kind of come in and fix this. And I didn't feel like we were it was too it was too lost. I mean, they do show the recap of Merklin kind of casting the spell from First Strike in the previously on page. But I feel I didn't feel like I needed a ton of lore. It felt kind of like the first act of a movie where it's not everything's explained, but there will be some exposition later. And especially in regards to stuff like the Visionaries and their kind of characters. But that was just me.
It just kind of felt like kind of slightly more had happened between issues than you would sort of otherwise expect to have happened. Did we find out at any point in the issue how the Visionaries actually got to Cybertron?
No.
No, yeah.
No,
that's
not really.
That I think was everything else, because stuff kind of the backstory with Prismos is kind of clearly kind of deliberately kind of built up throughout the issue with sort of Merklin sort of monologuing about it internally. But and I guess actually that's something where almost it's less of a question if you haven't read First Strike, because if you haven't read First Strike, you probably assume that we saw the Visionaries turn up in it. But of course we didn't, so I guess that's only a question I'm asking because I already read First Strike. But kind of putting aside all that though, it's a nicely plotted issue. Kind of we kind of it's a well done kind of opening act of the story. We get our characters and our conflict all laid out. We get to know our core characters at least. Because we don't see in this issue all of the Visionaries that we had art for originally.
Right, yeah. The only ones we see are Leoric, Virulina, Sindar, Galadria, Kravex, Lexor, Arzon, and Witterquick. Of those, the ones that we didn't get pictures of, the ones that we got art for but didn't see were, it was the Fox one. What was his name? Ektar, I want to say.
Sounds familiar. Yeah. And then kind of the Visionaries we see in this issue, kind of the ones we kind of get to know, Merklin, kind of Virulina, Leoric. and then Sindar and Witterquick, which is they're the ones that are on the cast page. So so our cast are introduced, our conflict is introduced. It's an accessible kind of straightforward opening act of a story, kind of. It does kind of, and despite the discontinuities that kind of it's a bit weird. It builds on Revolutionaries in a way, in that we are kind of continuing with the whole kind of Transformers can't deal with magic, and it makes them sort of turn into dust and dissolve and stuff. So that kind of, other than the thing which we'll be discussing in a while, I would struggle to find a fault with this issue, really. Yeah.
See, I would actually disagree with you in one regard, and that's that I don't feel like we, with the exception of Virulina and Leoric, we don't really get any character or any real focus on any of the other Visionaries as characters. There's Sindar.
We get enough to see that Sindar is a smart guy and Witterquick is sort of a chatty guy. And
I wouldn't even say that. I mean, he has one line of dialogue.
Wait, am I misremembering? I felt like we saw Witterquick more, but
No,
maybe that is just the roll call page messing with my memories.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's Lexor, who's all he has some lines, but Witterquick's literal, only line is interrupting Lexor, and he says, "Oh, that's a surprise." So
okay, wow, yeah, huh.
Yeah, that's the thing. I really don't feel like we, I think it's just the fact that Witterquick has a very evocative design that maybe informs, that gives you some, kind of informs his character, but it's and that's one thing I do love about the Visionaries. I mean, we talked about this back when the designs were first revealed, but I really do love these costumes.
That's so good.
They are really cool. Visually distinct, but still with enough of a synthesis that they all kind of, that there's some uniformity. I like it. But that's the thing, I really would have liked a bit more focus on both, we get a lot of Transformers focus, but I really would have liked to have fleshed out the Visionaries more. And I'm sure that we'll do that. I mean, that's the thing. It is the first issue of a 5-issue miniseries, so I'm sure we'll get more development down the line. But I really would have liked to have seen more interactions, not just between Leoric and Virulina, but Leoric and the other characters. Because that's the thing, because we do have Virulina interacting with Sindar, which gives us a little bit of stuff for the Darkling Lords, but not much for the Spectral Knights. I really would have liked to have seen the heroes interact and develop their characters a bit more. And I'm sure we'll see that as the series goes on. But for this first issue, I really can't tell you that much about, for instance, I really can't tell you much of, anything about a lot of the other characters. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was definitely the roll call page messing with my memories. And of the Visionaries, it's basically just Leora, Virulina, and Sindar that do much of anything, isn't it?
I will say this: we get a cursory reference to Cryotech, which is a cool little thing to put in this book. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but because of that name and its shared history in both Visionaries and Transformers, and the fact that we didn't see a design for him, so maybe he will show up as an actual character, but if not, it is cool that they at least acknowledge that name and threw that name out there. So I was a fan of that.
Clearly what needs to happen is that somehow Cryotech, the Visionary, turns himself into a transformer or something and becomes a mob boss. Or maybe just Cryotech the Visionary just becomes a mob boss for some reason. Just have fun with it.
Another thing about characters is I feel like for certain characters that Mags doesn't really have their voice quite down. The big one to me is Ironhide.
He's
just the contrast of how he was, just last week in the Till All Are One annual to this, and him being so such a so ready to fight and and all that. It's like it doesn't really keep in with the character that Ironhide was established in, even in just Till All Are One. I mean, Till All Are One, he specifically took over the Badgeless to stop fighting. I mean, and the fact that now he's just ready to fight these, the Visionaries, it didn't really ring true for me. It definitely, she doesn't really have Ironhide's voice down. And then I'd argue that there are times where I don't even feel like she has Cup's voice down. So
I think Ironhide is definitely being written as sort of a more typical G1 Ironhide rather than sort of IDW Ironhide, kind of who is kind of a sad dude of recent years. But I can know what you mean with Cup, but kind of.
It's not terrible, but
Cup's kind of always still Cup, and I enjoyed the focus on kind of Cup being kind of like a guy who wants to sort of essentially kind of be friends with everyone and wants everyone to
and it definitely
have a
is
nice time.
It definitely him being kind of the peacekeeper definitely is fitting with him in Revolutionaries and having been buds with Action Man. I can buy that would be that he would be like, hey, let's everybody try to get along and all that. So I mean, I buy it from Cup. I mean, the big one is just. I mean, luckily, a lot of these characters either don't have that much development, or, like that thing. I didn't really have issue with Wheeljack, or there's characters like Breakdown, who has Breakdown had a single line of dialogue before now. I mean, I'm sure he has, but it's like it's probably been like one or two. He really is. He's been such a minor character. This. I mean, to the point where this is the first time he's actually, had his name in the comics. So that's the thing. So a lot of these characters Mags gets to develop and and create. But with the pre-existing characters, there were some and I mean it's to be understood when kind of you've got a new writer joining kind of a very long franchise, and especially with Transformers, where kind of the IDW versions of characters have ended up sort of relatively different to sort of how you might remember the same characters from sort of past media. Like IDW Ironhide being this sort of slightly melancholic kind of like chill dude it's a far cry from like G1 cartoon Ironhide, who is sort of like probably saying some kind of like kooky slang and probably itching for a fight. Actually, tell you what, probably the main difference with Wheeljack is that Mags isn't writing out his New York accent like John Barber does. I do really enjoy writers committing to writing out accents. But I'm not going to make a fuss about the absence of it. It's all good. I'll say this: another character that a lot of people seem to really be digging that I'm not really loving, Viralina. I'm honestly, I just can't. She just comes off as needlessly like confrontational and I get that she's the villain. I understand that she is a bad guy and she's evil and she's a villain, but in a lot of the way she's so indignant when Cup is explaining sort of what their plan to house them as refugees is, it's it comes off as, really, you're the one leading the Darkling Lords? Why? You're bullheaded and stupid.
Which are unfortunately traits that will sometimes get people put in a leadership position.
Fair enough.
It kind of works. She is essentially kind of a Prismosian kind of nationalist, kind of, and that's what she has to be to sort of drive a conflict here. So
oh my
she's
gosh.
not going to be my new fave character or anything, but I think she's an effective villain from what we've seen of her, and kind of it's not kind of. I don't think it's like. Yeah, I don't think her motivations are sort of like unrealistic or anything. Yeah, like she is essentially just kind of a nationalist. Yeah.
I do love this like facepalming Leoric when Viralina's like, you excuse yourself. You're proposing to hold us down. Like Leoric's just like facepalming. I kind of want to use this as like a reaction image to things.
That kind of You can always count on Fico Ossio for sort of characters doing great kind of like wild takes in reaction to stuff.
Honestly, I mean, how many like crazy facial expressions has Fico given us over the year?
And I do consider it kind of a genuine measure of kind of like artistic quality on these books is sort of how effectively they can do kind of like big reaction faces that I want to crop out and use as reaction images on the internet.
Yeah. So but yeah, so like a lot of good stuff. Some characters are developing. Merklin's around. He's kind of just meh. I preferred him when he was the German scientist guy, quite frankly, honestly.
Yeah,
but
true.
But yeah,
actually, just think of Merklin for a second. That's kind of the one thing that kind of I watched the blooming first episode of the Visionaries cartoon. Like, found myself having to sort of like stop and kind of like reread everything again. Is kind of Merklin's narration explaining just what happened to Prismos. And it is all there, it's all there in the text that basically... Well, actually, no, it's there that, Merklin did a thing called a trinary realignment, but then it wasn't permanent, and Prismos got torn apart after it de-aligned. Does it actually say that it's suns, though, anywhere in the issue? That it's the planet's
It doesn't actually say anything about the suns. I imagine that it's going ahead and alluding to it, and like what I'm expecting to happen is like next issue is like, or like I expect Leoric to basically kind of to basically lay out to Ironhide or someone basically here's what happened. Merklin wanted power. So he cast a spell to realign the three suns and bring back magic, blah, 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 blah. But there is like a little hint towards like a little magnetism, a little gravity, which I mean,
it's
definitely is implying the suns thing. So,
I just found it odd in that sort of, it was vague enough that I wondered if we're still going to get like, say, a full flashback directly showing it to us, but also just specific enough that I wondered, are we not actually going to see this in full? But
I think there might be a flashback. It might be narrated by Leoric, like I was saying, but I could definitely see them drawing it out, not just having it revealed in dialogue. So, I mean, this comic book's the ultimate show don't tell medium.
But
I like Leoric as well. He's like he doesn't get too much, but he established himself as a as just a good leader, someone who cares about his people, but and has some resentment toward, and he clearly has some resentment towards having to work with Viralina and the Darkling Lords, but he tells her flat out, it's like, look, I don't like this, but I'm willing to work with you because it's for the good of everybody. So, and that's what I like, he's just a good, solid hero, and I'm down for that. So, yeah. So, shall we get to the thing?
Yeah.
Now, as much as we said that, how much we've liked it, me personally, I got spoiled on this. I got spoiled on it because, like, I check Twitter first thing in the mornings, and someone didn't spoil or tag it. Someone stated it outright. So, and I'll be honest, and so, I could go into this knowing that and, kind of thinking that and not having it be, like, a big thing. But that did probably affect my reading of it. So, Callum, I want your take, going into this, I assume, blind?
Oh, no, I actually also accidentally spoiled myself.
Oh.
But, I accidentally spoiled myself by, I think I'd ended up, like, looking... I think I'd glanced at the TFW thread about it, just sort of out of morbid curiosity, because they were probably going to be throwing a hissy fit about it for some reason or other, and accidentally spoiled myself. Yeah.
So yeah.
But I think ultimately I was a bit glad of it, because it allowed me to, like, I would have probably reacted a lot worse if I hadn't known it was coming. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you that, yeah, like, going into it knowing this was going to happen, you know, like, yeah. But it's still, it honestly, like, I'm with everyone else. This was a bad decision, and it pissed me off. And that is the death of Cup. And it's not even, and, you know, part of it is it's Cup. You know, it's not only a long-standing character, one that I've, you know, loved, you know, since I was, you know, a wee little lad watching the Transformers 86 movie on VHS. But it's also a character who has not only come to, like, be a really interesting character in the IDW universe, but was a standout in Revolutionaries. We would not have had that book being the way it was, like, so good and such a book that I loved if it weren't for Cup and his relationship to Action Man. And the fact that they kill him off and are so assuredly that, like, saying he's dead for reals, it pisses me off, quite frankly, because it's like it takes away the potential for stories, I think. Yo, Callum, I want your opinion, because I could honestly, I have a whole thing, so I want to go ahead and get your take on it.
Actually, I will say that we should kind of lead with the fact that the decision to kill Cup was, and we know this for a fact now, it was an editorial mandate. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that came from Max Bozzaggio. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, as soon as I kind of discovered that was the case, I did kind of think to myself, okay, I bet that was an editorial thing, just because, like, what new writer would come on and do that, really? Like, it felt like a really weird thing for a new writer on a series to be coming in and doing, and I was right. And just, and I think this is probably going to turn into a big thing, talking about, like, IDW's editorial decisions of late, we'll move on to that. But yeah, no, it's a stupid decision. It's like babies first, how to make people talk about your comic book level stuff. It's like, what can we do to generate buzz about Transformers versus Visionaries? Let's do a shock death. Cheap shock death at the end of the issue, and run some interviews about it on comic book websites. Yeah. It's just, oh my god, like, it's such a shallow way of kind of stirring up interest in the comic. It's not in service of the story of this issue. Kind of, the conflict is already established without a shock death to kind of, she's really bad. Like, there is already a conflict in place. It's not necessary to the story of this issue. It is actively a disservice to the universe at large, in terms of, both in terms of sort of, it's a disservice because it robs us of the potential for future stories with Cup, especially when he'd just been part of, kind of, put into part of kind of, a new team, essentially. And kind of, I discovered this the other day, but Revolutionaries' direct market sales were not great. It dropped out of the Diamond top 300 after like 3 issues, I think. But that shouldn't matter. Like, it's just it's a just and as well as just kind of robbing us of future stories. It just feels like such bad sort of like etiquette. Almost kind of, Cup is a character that has had kind of the John Barber has effectively had kind of overall ownership of since Dark Cybertron. Like, he went off and started in Sins of the Wreckers, but sort of he comes out fine at the other end and is immediately back in XRID. And he's had kind of an ongoing story under that writer, and he has just been a lead character in a limited series by that writer. And now, we just have, oh no, we've chosen to shock kill him in an unrelated miniseries. Just like that, in the first issue. And it's not even kind of, Cup is a main character in this miniseries, and he dies, like, at the end of that story, having been a part of that story. No, he is shock killed at the beginning of a story. Yeah. For cheap shock value. And, like, I know it's a licensed property, like, John Barber doesn't literally kind of have ownership of Cup, and, when it's a licensed property, sort of, it is kind of ultimately the sort of, editorial, and then kind of the license holder kind of, like, final call and everything. But, it just feels doesn't feel like good etiquette, is the way I'd ultimately put it.
Here's the thing. It's just a bad decision in so many ways. Okay, so first off, this is a long-standing Transformers character who kind of technically already died once before. I guess he didn't technically die, because he just was sent to the Dead Universe.
He effectively died.
But effectively, narratively, he was gone and out and lost forever. So first off, you kill a character who was kind of already killed off already. Secondly, you kill a character who was, one of the main, who's a mainstay, like, I feel like Cub is a fan favorite of the Transformers fan, and you choose to kill him off in a crossover book by one of the characters from the other property. This is incredibly bad optics for fans of the Transformers brand, because they see it, because certain subsects of the fandom will see it as putting one franchise above the other by having a Visionary kill a Transformer. It sends this message of of trying to sell, especially considering Visionaries. It's like, rather than selling them by making a good story and making the characters interesting, they instead decide to show how badass they are by killing off one of the star players of another franchise. That is incredibly bad optics and is going to get you a lot of heat from fans of Transformers. It's like the fact that no one considered that is in the decision was incredibly dumb, in my opinion. And the fact is, this is something that mainstream comics have had to deal with criticism of for so long, of crossovers and events that result in, that have gratuitous shock deaths. I wouldn't say this is as egregious as, say, Leanne Harper in Justice League Cry for Justice, which was a really bad just death, but it's like, it's such a, I'm sorry, I do not agree with this idea that a lot of publishers seem to have, where we have to show the stakes are serious, let's kill someone. It's like, no, you don't have to do that to show the stakes are serious. You don't have to kill off a beloved character with who has had their stories and who has stories that could still be told, to just kill him off, in a move to show things are faux serious, It's like, it's such a stupid editorial, and the fact that it was an editorial decision and not a writer's decision, it makes it all even worse, because it's like, okay, it's clear that this writer did not want to do this. This was not her idea, and yet she is getting, is going to get the brunt of the criticism for a decision that was not her fault. And quite frankly, it's something that it has, in discussions, overshadowed this entire book and put a lot of people off of this book. And it's like, and that is why you should not do something like this, because because anyone who picked up this first issue who was a fan of Cup, they've dropped it. I mean, I'm going to keep reading it, it's like, and we're going to keep reading it, but honestly, mostly for this podcast. If it weren't for that fact, I would honestly be hard pressed. It would honestly be one of those things where I would reconsider reading the rest of the issues. if it weren't for this podcast and just my general love of this universe and these comics, it's seriously not. This was a bad decision, IDW editorial.
Yeah.
And
it's the thing that if a Transformers fan was on the fence about this series and picked up the first issue to see, that was not going to convince them to pick up the rest. Oh my goodness.
No, this was, and also, like, can we talk about this the in memoriam? Can we go ahead and talk about this? Okay. Ugh. I don't know why, but so IDW included an in memoriam for this book, where David Marriott, the assistant editor, and David Marriott has essentially, I don't know what exactly an assistant editor does, because he's kind of been on, like, he's been on a couple issues of, like, every book in the Hasbro universe, mostly on, like, David Hedgecock related stuff and, like, Carlos Guzman, so, like, but he says, I won't read the whole thing, but he's like, "Ba weep grana weep ninny bong, friends." It's like, okay, opening with the universal greeting and all that. And he says, quote, "There will be no, but not this time, there will be no trailblazer to bring him home." So first off, you're an editor, right? You should probably get your characters' names right.
Maybe he's specifically talking about the Hearts of Steel character Trailblazer, who was called Trailblazer in that one series.
Fair enough. No Optimus to pull
you, Hearts of Steel Trailblazer. Why didn't you save Cup?
Yes. No Optimus to pull him from the dead universe, no Action Man to come to his rescue. And from the moment that IDW editorial, I forget who suggested Cup specifically, made that suggestion on a call with Mags, I knew it was the right choice. Things never seem more dire than when you lose a bright, shining light. So, and first off, I want to say that in follow-up interviews, I think Marriott and Sarah Gatos, who also was an editor on this book, said that Carlos Guzman was the person, who's been editing RID and some of the other Transformers books since John Barber left. So what you're, but anyways, David, I want to talk to you specifically. What you're saying with that letter is, like, by saying, I knew it was the right decision, was that we should be happy. We should be happy to see one of our beloved, like, a character that we love, bite the dust. You realize that's how it comes across, right? That is so condescending and frustrating from an editor. And to say, yeah, this decision from the editorial department was great. No. No, it wasn't. And the reaction that you're getting has proven that. And the fact that you're also using this as a promotional tool for this book, the fact that on the second printing, which, honestly, congrats on the book to get a second printing. That is actually really commendable. And, like, I don't know if that's, it shows that people, Transformers fans were evidently open enough to pre-order it enough. It probably has to do with Mags' fan base. But to say that, like, and use this as promotion, say, hey, look at this, we killed off a beloved character, isn't this such a great idea? It's friggin' stupid.
It's just, the letter is just, it's, like, if the letter hadn't been there, it would have just been like, okay, that was a stupid editorial decision. That's okay, fine. But the fact that the letter exists, it shows that they knew this was a terrible idea, because the letter is trying so hard to say, oh no, yes, this was a good idea. This was definitely a sensible idea. It was totally kind of necessary for the story. Like, yeah, for reals. The letter makes it so much worse because, it shows that they all knew this was a really stupid idea. But they did it anyway.
It's like hey, let's show that we acknowledge this character's and how cool this character is by doing a whole history of like this character. It's like, and that backfires so hard because it's like, how about you just not kill the character off in the first place? I apologize to our listeners who were using headphones because I'm sure that my mic popped at that, so I apologize. But seriously, like, they knew this was not a good decision, and they went through with it anyway, and that's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And also, of course, there's also the kind of, and Cup is definitely for reals dead. He's totally dead, not coming back angle of the letter as well, which is just like, oh,
yeah,
like, excuse me while my eyes roll out of my skull. It's like,
yeah,
the letter is trying too hard to make they know that it's a really stupid idea, so then we get a letter that is tries so hard to convince the reader that no, it's actually a good idea. Except it just hammers home how stupid an idea it is.
Yeah, and I can't, and that's the thing. This book, that's the thing. Like, this book has 3 editors on it. Sarah Gatos is credited as the main editor. Carlos Guzman is credited with assistants, and David Marriott is credited with assistant editor. Seriously, nobody said, hey, this is like, maybe this isn't like it's just, it's like, that reeks, like, editorial mandates are a plague on the comic book industry. I mean, yes, editors are necessary. Editors help drive, where stories are going. I honestly think that we would not have a lot of the great stories that we had in Phase 2 if it weren't for the editorial team and they're kind of, focusing, deciding to do, like, the whole, let's focus on after the war and the wars that's over. I mean, that gave us More Than Meets the Eye, gave us Robots in Disguise, gave us some amazing stories. But the fact is, editorial mandates like this are a plague on the industry that I am so tired of seeing. I am so tired of seeing characters I like get killed off because some editor thinks that it'll be shocking. And yeah, it will be shocking, and it'll also be infuriating for your readers. It was a bad move. That's the thing. That's what I keep saying. This was a bad move in every possible respect, and the fact that they went through with it is disappointing from IDW's editorial department.
It's just, it's cheap. It's not in service of the story. It's in service of, like, creating buzz.
Yeah.
And, it's to active detriment of the story, essentially. And also... And
I'm sorry, but buzz, I mean, do general public people remember Cup? I mean, wouldn't they say, oh, he's one of those from the lame movie where, where they killed off all the other interesting characters?
And it's ill-conceived on an exciting number of levels.
Yeah.
And it was Chris that was saying on Twitter, it's essentially a validation of all the sort of worst things that people were saying about the Hasbro universe that previously weren't true. Like, you would see people going around on Transformers forums saying, oh, they just have the G.I. Joes beat the Transformers constantly to make the G.I. Joes look better, except that doesn't actually happen in any point in Revolution. In Revolution, when the G.I. Joes try and fight the Transformers, they fail at it horribly and, like, manage to take Jazz's arm off. Yeah. With, like, a combination of a rocket launcher and a drone strike, and that's literally what they managed before getting all their technology broken. But no, now they have gone and done what the sort of most sort of, like, pig-headed critics of the concept of the Hasbro universe were accusing them of doing. They're like, oh god, guys.
And that disappoints me as a fan of this universe and someone who has advocated for it, in Transformer circles for since the beginning. Like, from the start of this idea, I was into it, and the fact that this validates, the infuriating complaints, of people who, are so against it. I'm with you. And honestly, I think, it opens us up to a discussion that we should have about the editorial at IDW, and how I honestly long for the days of John Barber.
It's very much the kind of thing where we didn't realize how good we had it.
No,
I certainly didn't realize how good we had it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. When Barber was editing it, More Than Meets the Eye, top of its. I mean, that's the thing. Like, almost everyone can pretty much say look at Lost Light and say and see how it is such a step down from Lost Light. But the fact is, we had an artist change and an editor change, but that was it. Lost Light is still the same writer, the same person who has quite frankly been given so much credit for being a genius and a forward thinker for Transformers. And I really think that Barber might have been one of those people that helped, because an editor. That's the thing. An editor is incredibly important in comics because an editor can look at a story as an outsider perspective and say, this looks good, this doesn't work. And that is important for any writer. In any professional writer, whether it's, novels or comics or, movies, whatever, having an editor there to look and another set of eyes on that book. And I think the fact that that John was also a writer, in addition to his job as an editor, allowed him to look at things from a different perspective than someone who is just come up through editing books and and looking at it on the whole. John could see it from both the story perspective and the business perspective, and maybe some other people don't consider all those possibilities, but I think it proves that John Barber is was an incredibly invaluable part of the editorial department, and the fact that recent books have waned in that department. The great example I like to use is Mask, and ROM. ROM and Mask and Micronauts were all written by different people, and all had varying levels of quality, and all were written or were edited by the same person, David Hedgecock. David Hedgecock was clearly not looking at things from a certain point of view to give us such great books as ROM and such garbage books as Mask,
It's like Mask. So many of the things that were wrong with Mask could have been picked up by editorial. Mm-hmm. The fact that its plot couldn't keep itself not just consistent with Revolution before, but couldn't keep itself consistent with previous issues of the same comic. Surely, if editorial is there for anything, it is there for that.
Yeah. And part of it is just shows that you never know who's responsible for what's good in a comic. You can't say, you can't attribute something solely to a writer, you can't attribute something solely to an artist or anything like that. But yeah, the editorial. We certainly, Carlos Guzman has shown that he's a pretty good editor in the past. He was the sole. That's saying when Barber was writing RAD. Guzman was the editor, because Barber did not want to be his own editor. He knew, and that's the thing. He realized that he needed someone who was not himself to look at that book.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I don't know. I don't know. But it's certainly just this was a terrible This was a terrible move by IDW. This was a terrible decision, and the fact that it has overshadowed a lot of the good things, because that's the thing. When I put this book down, I was the first time I read it, I was pretty mad. I was like, it bothered me. I calmed down later. I went back and I've read it a couple more times, and yeah, it's a really solid start to a series, but that one final page overshadows everything that's good about the book. And that's the thing. We've been talking for almost an hour at this point, just about this one book, and I feel like half or even more than half of this time has been spent on discussing this one page. This one page. Not even two. Like, just one page in this 24-page comic.
Yeah, it's such a disservice to the creative team, because it is guaranteed that nobody is actually going to be talking about the comic on the merits of anything its creative team did. They're just going to be talking about the editorially mandated shock death on the final page. We made a point of talking about the rest of the comic beforehand, but on this podcast. But if you look around the sort of Transformers sphere online, you're just gonna find people talking about the shock death of Cup, because because why would they? Frankly, it does overshadow everything else, and I feel genuinely sorry for kind of Max and Fico and the rest of the creative team that just the rest of their work isn't getting talked about because of that final page. So.
It's it's incredibly disappointing, especially as someone who was a fan of Mags's work before. I started reading her work because she was going to write Visionaries, but like someone who legitimately became a fan of her, outside of this work, it is, and enjoys her writing. It is incredibly disappointing to see, that she was given this and kind of forced to make the most of it. Especially as far as IDW publishing goes, I would say the first transgender writer or creator. I guess there was Rachel Stevens received a credit on that issue of Lost Light, but if I'm wrong on this regard, please someone tell me. But
so Sophie Campbell on Gem, and who has done the bit of right, and does now have a writing credit via Dimensions.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sophie Campbell. Yeah. She. I guess I was thinking mostly just Transformers. I didn't think about Gem.
But
Okay.
If you expand the purview beyond the sort of officially Hasbro Universe stuff. Yeah.
But as far as Transformers goes,
Transformers. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Because because obviously I was thinking, there's Alexis and Rachel who worked on Ask Vector Prime, so but it's it really does, it's a bad situation, and I really hope that the rest of the series can really pull out all the stops and really just be a really great series. I will say this though, outside of the Transformers circles, this book has gotten pretty good reviews. I know the guys over at thevisionaries.net, they really enjoyed it, and a lot of them said they weren't reading Transformers. I know several mainstream comic publications, they gave it good reviews. So that's the thing. So it definitely seems to be mostly a Transformers fan. If you've been reading the books, especially that this pisses off, that this has been pissing off. But the fact is, we are Transformers fans, and so in our opinion, as fans, as critics, this was bad. This was a bad decision that overshadowed an otherwise really good book.
Yeah. I could sigh all day about how stupid a decision it was.
Yes. And I will say this, though. Your comic was such a good therapy after this issue. It really was. By the time this episode will have come out, we'll have posted it on our Libsyn page and on our Tumblr, so you guys can see it. But Callum did a little mini, pretty much kind of a mosaic Transformers Mosaic kind of thing called Movie Night, and it's a good read. It's a good read, people.
Yeah, I did it to help myself, essentially. Yeah.
And Mags retweeted it even.
That was so surreal. And I guess perhaps speaks to frustration. Because she said as much on Twitter that I think she used the words along the sort of we sort of like did our best with it. Essentially, we tried to do our best with it. Essentially, and does this possibly speak to
the way she was? I mean, she didn't apologize. She wasn't like no sorry, but the way she was so emphatically saying this was an editorial mandate proves that this was not something that she wanted to do. I mean, it's but yeah, it's sort of surreal to have my fic comic basically retweeted by the writer of the thing it was fixing. Who knows? Maybe she'll like it so much she'll insist with that they publish it in the back of the trade. And then you'll have officially been a published comic book writer. But
I'm glad other people did like it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I liked it on the whole, except for that one thing. And aside from that one thing, it really is a solid start to the series. And I do look forward to the rest, to the rest of the series, because I want to see, how this book can be improved how this book can be when they don't have a stupid editorial mandate.
Well,
pushing.
It's gonna, It's gonna now. We're past this now.
Yeah.
So
let's hope that this is literally the worst thing about the book. Let's hope that the worst thing about this book was an editorial mandate that the writer didn't want. Let's hope.
Yeah.
So admittedly, we did get an hour-long discussion about TF versus Visionaries. So I mean, for a week where we only have one book, that's not bad.
Well, clearly the solution to IDW's kind of inconsistent shipping is just to make every book really controversial, so we have to talk about it forever. Don't actually do that, IDW. Don't get any ideas.
Clearly, someone from IDW listened to our podcast and was like, "Oh man, they don't have. Oh man, we got to make sure that these guys have something to talk about." But please don't ever do this again. We would actually much rather just have very short episodes. Let's do some ranked.
So, yeah.
All right, it's time once again for our ranked segment, the part of the show where we take a look back at some of the past stories that IDW that have been published in the Hasbro Universe, and we rank them from the best to the worst. We have our current listings on our site, and I believe they're included. There should be on our Allspark posts.
I think. Yeah,
that's more Callum's half of the job than mine. So.
Oh yeah. Because you've done this. I'll make sure this episodes are at least.
Yes. So we won't go. I don't feel like we need to go through the whole list right now. But needless to say, we have our 7 titles that we've ranked so far. We have 3 submissions this time. We're going to go through these in the order that I received them. So first off, oh wow, this one is from Rom the Space Knight himself. He on Twitter. Yeah. So apparently, Space Knight armor, it gets you Twitter. You can, I mean, that's just standard, right? And any kind of technologically alien metal enhanced suit should just have Twitter on it, right? Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. So he says, though it be ever so self-serving, Rom Earthfall. So the first story arc from the Rom series from IDW. Now this is the most recent thing that we've ranked, I think.
Yes, it is. I have dates written down here in Let's see, 2016.
So yes, so I mean, Earthfall. I mean, it's a really great start to ROM. I think. I mean, but I know I'm saying that. So Callum, you might have to be a little more objective than you know. You might have to bring in some more objectivity than I have. So, because I mean, that's the thing. Because I read this I read this story. I mean, and to me, it's, oh my gosh, ROM is actually back. But it really is a good series. Or a good story. It sets up, everything beautifully. It's not too rushed. Everything, it has very good pacing as far as like each part of the story goes. It's when you read it, whether it's in floppies or in trades, it is, it's a single solid, really good read. It sets up a lot of intrigue as far as the dire wraiths and Rom's war. Provides us with some good supporting cast. I think it's a really great story, personally. So
yeah, no, I would agree. Yeah, because Earthfall is sort of, it's 5 issues effectively, isn't it? 0 to 4, and yeah, no, it's a good story. It does a very nice job of kind of introducing you to Rom, both kind of like in terms of like what and who he is, and sort of what he's like as a character. Like, kind of, yeah, because I forget. I don't think I feel like I maybe read the sort of first few issues of ROM all at once. I don't think I started reading it monthly until a little while in. But yeah, no, I remember kind of liking very quickly his whole kind of, he speaks like kind of he's a Silver Age comic character or something. Everyone else speaks normally, just that's ROM kind of like being melodramatic about everything. So yeah, kind of you get to know him as a character, and he's a very likable character very quickly. We get all our supporting casts brought together, and we get a sort of a nice little sort of low, kind of low level, but still a sort of a concluding kind of conflict fight at the end to sort of put a cap on it. Yeah, it's sort of, it's a nicely done first story arc. Kind of, it certainly it leaves you wanting to read more on, I would say.
Yeah. So let's rank it. Okay, I'm gonna be bold. Would you place it above Last Stand of the Wreckers?
I don't think I would.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I was like, I don't know if it's actually better than Last Stand of the Wreckers, because Last Stand is such a good series. But
I think
But would you?
Yeah.
What do you?
I'd been looking at the ballpark of Cobra and Shadowplay. Like it's good. It's good. I feel like the sort of the thing I'd give it against it is that sort of it's quite a sort of a plot driven story there, and there's not a lot of sort of in the way of sort of character work in it is the thing I'd put against it. And so like I would rank whensoever we get to ranking the reinforcements arc, the second one, I would probably put that above Earthfall, because it starts with Livia and Orpheon there. We start to get a bit more sort of like in terms of character drama almost. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that. See,
yeah.
I personally, just from my personal enjoyment, but I realize you have to put an asterisk next to me, like next to this, because it's me. I would put it above Cobra, personally. I honestly would. Yeah,
no, I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah, kind of, because Cobra is good, but there are things about Cobra that irritate me, like just the shameless fridging of Jinx.
Yeah, it's a very it's very well written dour, but it's dour. It really is. I guess maybe I'm pushing it, but would you put it above? Shadowplay?
That is tricky.
All right. I mean, I'm honestly hard pressed to put. I mean, like I love ROM, so it's like I would be willing to put it above Shadowplay, but if you're not I wouldn't say that it's a better I mean, Shadowplay is a really good story, so I wouldn't necessarily say that Earthfall is better than Shadowplay. So
I think I would put it below Shadowplay. It's just because I think it suffers slightly. I would say basically, yeah, Earthfall is very good, but it kind of, and like, I don't know, I'm not sure, kind of, I don't know what I'd ask more of it, but kind of as a story, it is sort of necessarily sort of held back a bit by the fact that it also has to set everything up. And yeah, like, I would definitely consider putting Reinforcements above Shadowplay, but I'm not sure I would Earthfall.
Okay, all right. Well then, all right. Well then, let's compromise and put Earthfall below Shadowplay. I'm fine with it there. It is
cool. Okay.
Because it really is a good, such a good, like, Shadowplay is just really good. So it's like I'm willing to put it below Shadowplay. So yes, ROM Earthfall takes the number 3 spot. Thank you very much, ROM. But yeah, so let's see. Next up, we have a list from Broadside on the Allspark. Hey, Broadside, thank you very much for another list. Broadside actually submitted one list that we had to reject because it featured a story that did not doesn't fall within our rankings because it's not a year old yet.
And it was a nice set of 3.
Yes.
So we solicited a second set of 3.
Yeah, so we let her submit a second. So yeah, she suggested Infiltration, All Hail Megatron, and For All Mankind, which is the first arc of the Costa ongoing. So, which this presented us a slight thing, but we talked it out before we hit the record button and decided that because technically For All Man, like, as far as looking at the individual issues, the Costa ongoing, technically the first issue has a separate story title than the rest of the ones that are collected in the first trade. But we decided that was really more of a prologue. It really was kind of one continuous story. So let's go in the order she listed. Infiltration. I mean, Infiltration is, I hadn't reread that in a while before we got that suggestion, and Infiltration really holds up. Like, it
really does. Kind of more so than any of kind of the Asians, I would say. I would struggle to pick faults with Infiltration.
Yeah, I mean, it really, yeah, it sets everything up. It presents very, the way it presents the more. Focus on disguise, as such a pivotal part of the series, is really good. Things are happening, like major things are happening each issue, which, I think is essential for any miniseries. And of course, I love that moment, just that moment where Verity, lost her name for a second, where Verity sees Megatron, and Megatron looks at her and just ignores her because she's an insect. What is she to Megatron? And just and the way this Megatron, that's thing, I was reading it in my head and I realized I've actually, for the first time in a while, applied a voice actor to a character, and granted, maybe this is just McFeely's video, doing this, but I had that. This Megatron has that same sort of cold, calculating Megatron that we get in, say, animated, and I you could read all of Infiltration Megatron, Megatron's lines, and just the way he, even the Or-13 empowered Starscream, just Megatron's presence just brings with it this gravitas. I mean, that we rarely see from, especially from stories, from Transformer stories, Megatron and Optimus have this, reverence in this story that we don't, because they are the leaders of these armies. I mean, that we don't tend to get that gravitas a lot. I feel like in a lot of other Transformers media, it's this. It's you feel like there's a reason this person leads this army, and mostly for Megatron, because Optimus really only shows up on the last page. But it's that is really, it really does change things up, like from the traditional first Transformers story where they come to Earth and all that, and it's really good, and it really holds up. Even this, like, what is it, 12 years later at this point?
Oh Christ! Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So.
It's such a good approach to setting up a new Transformers universe. Essentially, it's very sort of prescient almost of the movies. It is itself a very kind of cinematic kind of story. It's such a good decision to focus on the humans, to have the humans as the way in, and because I forget when do you first properly see someone in robot mode? It's not the first issue, is it?
I want to say, I read it in the trade, of course, but I want to say it's like the third or fourth. It's not till like halfway, like almost halfway through.
Actually, no, it's the very final page of the first issue.
Yeah.
Run about and run amok.
Yeah.
Appear in robot mode.
Yeah, but like we definitely don't get them like really transforming until like about halfway through the series, So, yeah. For some reason I was just thinking of that Ratchet was the first one we actually saw in robot mode, so I was thinking of him. But anyways, but yeah. So Earth infiltration is really good.
It's you could adapt infiltration into a film. It's very cinematic. It's very sort of it's a very good approach to kind of starting something new from scratch in terms of because thinking about it in the context of being kind of a G1 reboot is it's very sensible and restrained, it is not a sort of big exercise in sort of nostalgia, kind of mud wallowing, as I've occasionally said in the past. It deliberately tries to be something new. It's like you're saying, it focuses on the whole kind of in disguise aspect. And we focus on we don't focus at all, Optimus and Megatron. Optimus, is it the final page that Optimus turns up?
Yeah, yeah.
And Megatron is this big thing that, he genuinely kind of commands a presence. His kind of just him turning up is kind of a huge turning point for the story of it.
Yeah, and there's that moment where they're collapsing the Nevada base. And Megatron just climb, has the whole hand reaches up, climbs out of it, and everyone's like, we did something bad, we made a mistake, and then he just blasts, it was Blitzwing, I think, he just blasts immediately at his own troops, because he will not tolerate that. Yeah, it's it was such a good Megatron's presence, delivered such an oomph to the story. And of course, it's also, it had a huge impact, obviously, because it was the start of this universe and all that, but but it also, had, we have interesting human characters like Hunter and Jimmy and Verity, who would go on to have incredibly long careers. And I personally, it's weird to see, it's funny to look back at this first story, which is all about the disguise and, keeping things on the down low, and then compare that to the last, however many years worth of stories since All Hail Megatron happened, where disguise is not really an issue. Especially now in the comics, it's and admittedly that's something that I've always liked about Transformers, was that I feel has sometimes gotten lost along the way, is the idea of robots in disguise. So. Yeah, so overall, Infiltration, I would say, is a great story. So
and the E.J. Sue art as well, just very nice.
Yeah,
and both kind of in terms of the art being nicely done, and then also kind of the character designs.
Oh yeah,
they kind of, because they are kind of, they are recognisably sort of the G1 characters, but they don't. It's not just aping kind of the animation models.
Yeah.
Like Bumblebee looks like Bumblebee, but he has a slightly different transformation scheme. There's sort of like a higher level of kind of mechanical detail than the animation model. And then you've got kind of all the Seekers turning into, although they're F-22s, I think, aren't they? Like movie Starscream.
They're F-22s. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go to the ranking. Let's start low and then go up. I would put it above Ironhide, personally.
Yes, I would. Yeah.
I would even say I'd put it above Cobra. Like, if we're doing the whole which would you rather read on a bus, I would rather read Infiltration.
No, I'd put it above Cobra. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. This is tricky now. What would you put it above Earthfall?
It's tricky. I think again, it does sort of. It has sort of elements of sort of stuff that's kind of necessary because it's set up, but I feel, and I mean, it's kind of also a product of the fact that Infiltration has sort of two more issues and 22-page issues at that. So there is a significant page count difference. I think in kind of the room that extra room that it has to breathe in, Infiltration does sort of, it feels like more of its own kind of standalone experience, almost you could turn Infiltration into a film, and that would be it would be a film that kind of had a beginning, middle, end. Be Earthfall. Earthfall feels very much like
Earthfall is the start. It's the start of an ongoing. Yeah.
And I mean, Infiltration is as well, but I feel like Infiltration is a bit more of its own standalone story.
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah. And I feel like you do get to know sort of your your main cast a bit better. And again, it's because it has 2 extra issues to work with. It's got the space to sort of Earthfall couldn't have spent an entire issue, say, getting you to know Camilla, say, because it was only 4 issues long.
I would say Earthfall is it's like the first episode of a TV show. It's like the first episode.
That is a good way of putting it.
It's the first episode of a TV show where they know they're going to have more episodes to develop and can end on can pretty much end on a cliffhanger. Infiltration feels more like it's the first movie with rising action, falling action, and they set up for a sequel, but it has falling action and the denouement and all that.
Actually, you know what?
So what
Earthfall really feels like is the opening multi-parter of a Western cartoon.
Yeah,
it sets up the premise, and that kind of introduces us to all our characters, brings them together, and then we get a sort of reasonably low stakes confrontation with some of the main villains at the end.
So I would be inclined to agree. I would put So I think Infiltration goes above Earthfall. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't know about if it goes above Shadowplay though.
I'm not. Yeah, I think I would agree there. I don't think I would put it above Shadowplay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, because it does still have the the unfortunate thing of its setup and and setting up future storylines, whereas Shadowplay could just be a good story in and of itself in this larger tapestry of the universe and all that. So.
Yeah, no, I think I'd agree. As well, the big overall thing I say about the Asians is that, other than kind of his few kind of key sort of pet characters like Grimlock, sort of Furman characters often don't have that strong a character voice.
Yeah.
It is sometimes a bit like, yeah, sort of essentially we have got sort of a bunch of sort of players playing out a plot here without sort of character and personality kind of driving anything much particularly, whereas Shadow Play is sort of it's got a big sort of, it's got action and a sort of intrigue, it has got sort of plot to it, but it is also sort of very character driven, sort of like, yeah.
All right.
Things happen in Shadow Play because of how people feel and sort of think about things.
Yeah, so Infiltration takes the third spot, takes the number 3 spot from Earthfall. So wow, last day in the records on Shadowplay, they are really hanging in there. Good on you, James. So, all right. Next up, All Hail Megatron. Now, Broadside specifically said without the coda issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of 1 to 12 is kind of. I think originally they weren't going to be even released as sort of 13 to 16. I think they were originally going to be sort of All Hail Megatron coda 1 to 4. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, all right. So just judging it based on the 12, and we might look at the codas as a single collection, similar to how we did our Hearts and Minds later. We'll see. It depends on if anyone suggests the coda issues. If that's what we're going to do, and we're just going to look at it, 12 issues. Yeah. It's All Hail Megatron. I don't really like All Hail Megatron. It's so its biggest weakness is it is so decompressed. Nothing happens in those first 4 issues other than just general Decepticons going around killing people and people crying. I mean the fact is the Autobots don't even really do anything until the 4th issue. So
I was going to say they don't actually I feel sort of
there's a kind of cursory first issue appearance, but that's it.
But do they appear in the first issue?
It's literally the last page, and there's no dialogue. It's just we see Optimus on the bed, I
could have sworn that page was at the end of issue 3. So that's slightly better than I was remembering.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's at the end of the first issue. But yeah, it's such a stretched out read. Admittedly, I breezed through it super fast when I was flipping back through it for this podcast. But it's I mean, what did all okay? So not only should we judge these stories as stories in and of themselves, I feel we also do need to look at their larger impact. And it's
oh yeah, absolutely.
What did All Hail Megatron give us? It gave it was not that great of a story. That it was, it kind of reveled in, it's like the 86 or the 84 cartoon, but it's serious. People die, and it's such a boring. It's honestly just boring to me. I don't care about All Hail Megatron. I don't like All Hail Megatron. So it's gonna go. So for me, it's gonna go pretty low. And as far as its long-term impact, it gave us the, tedious humans hate the Transformers, Transformers versus military thing that we had to endure through the Costa ongoing. It gave us Spike, IDW Spike, who is just a terrible character.
No one likes Spike. It did give us the seed, though, the very seed. I not to give it too much credit, but yeah, it gave us the seed of modern day IDW Thundercracker.
And even then, I would more attribute that to Costa, personally.
Well, yeah, no, All Hail Megatron it put the things in place that allowed Costa to start doing interesting stuff with him, and then Barber to have even more fun with him. But I would not give Megatron, a lot of credit for everything. Its art, the Guido art is lovely. Because I think does Josh color it? I think
it's a fine drawn.
Bertram
drawn book
colors it, right?
Yeah, although let me hold on. I need to double check something.
Bertram does color it.
Yeah,
it's sort of
But who was the other artist that worked on it? Because
there are fill-ins by someone. Yeah.
Let's see.
Who there are some Casey fill-ins on one issue. Issue 5 has Casey fill-ins.
Who did one of the? It was like one of the latter issues.
Yeah, I remember bits with like Soundwave fighting humans were a fill-in.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was Emiliano Santalucci.
Oh yeah, that sounds. Apparently, issue 7 has EJ Sue pages. Oh yeah, no, these pages with the flashbacks in episode, the flashbacks to them sort of making the swarm in issue 7 have EJ Sue. Yeah, wow, there are more artists worked on this than I realized.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Not a lot of those don't really synthesize. At least in my opinion, like the Emiliano pages don't work with the Guido pages. It's like it really like, and when you're gonna have different artists, especially going back and forth, like they need to synthesize. Like it's one of the things that we, we mentioned in our discussion on the Primeless issue, where we had all those different pencilers, and luckily Josh, was able to synthesize them to a point. But it's like a lot of the different art just didn't work together very well, in my opinion. So I mean, it's going to lose points for that in my regards. So let's. I mean, as far as ranking goes, I'm inclined to start at the bottom and try to go up.
Yeah. What I will say in All Hail Megatron's favour is that it has a lot of very good moments. They don't add up into anything that's remotely satisfying, but it has some very good moments, both in terms of sort of big cinematic moments, like kind of like Omega Supreme arriving to sort of like stomp everything, or like and like Omega Supreme and Devastator fighting and like pushing each other into the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah. And
then also kind of the big splash panel of just Devastator being ridiculously gigantic, grabbing like jets out of the air. It has some very kind of stylish cinematic moments. And it has a few fun character moments, like the gag with Cliffjumper and the Little Red Light. I really love that gag with Cliffjumper and Little Red Light.
That's pretty good. I like that. That was pretty good. But
they don't. It's like it kind of. It's almost like it was the story was conceived as a bunch of big attention-grabbing cinematic moments, and then sort of awkwardly strung together into a sort of overlong, decompressed kind of.
Yeah.
Bunch of kind of blah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'll admit there are moments that are good, but on the whole, and of course, this also gave us pre-Roberts Drift.
Yeah, Drift. Did you know that the Transformers War is bad and stupid, and they're all the same? And yeah, well done. You've now heard the plot of every Shane McCarthy Transformers book ever.
So, all right, so let's go ahead and rank it. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up, shall we?
Right.
Is it worse than The Fall of G.I. Joe?
I don't think it is. It's decompressed.
It's
but
not
stuff happens.
Yeah, it's
stuff
not
happens.
mind-numbingly boring like The Fall of G.I.
Yeah.
Joe. Would you say it's better than Hearts and Minds?
Yeah.
I don't know. They're definitely not the same beast.
No. Hearts and Minds is sort of, it's kind of relatively competent, but I felt like, they were kind of good, but I felt like, kind of, none of them sort of had the length to actually be sort of engaging as character spotlights. And actually, Hearts and Minds is also so decompressed. You can read the entire Hearts and Minds trade paperback in probably 10 minutes flat.
Yeah.
I think I'd put it above Hearts and Minds, I think, just because it has more substance to it. Like, and I know Hearts and Minds is trying to be kind of a character spotlight thing, but they're so short that they barely even function as character spotlights. They're just sort of like...
They're not stories, they're monologues. I think that's how we put it once. And, yeah. It's like... so...
I'd rather reread All Hail Megatron. Like, I'd be more kind of willing to reread All Hail Megatron just because, like, I'd get some more level of entertainment out of it, I think. So if we're using that as the metric, I'd put it above Hearts and Mind. I like that as a fallback metric, as like, what would I like to reread more?
Yeah, so between Hearts and Minds and the Cobra History of Cobra / History of Cobra Commander issues? That sounds good to me. I definitely wouldn't put it above the Cobra History Lesson, because I do quite like the Cobra History Lesson story. It's a bit of fun. Yeah. Alrighty, so there it goes. Taking the number 8 spot. Alrighty. And let's see, and then Broadside had the first arc of the Costa ongoing.
So yeah, for all mankind, which, like, it's a excerpt from all of Costa's issue titles are like titles of things or references or something. What's it? It's from Speech or something. That's it. I thought it was something to do with the moon. The title of the issue is on the final page. It refers to the plaque left on Earth's moon by Apollo 11, which reads in full, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." So it's like... It's basically, I want the title to be we come in peace, but not that.
Yeah.
And then it is followed by Things Fall Apart, Part 1 to 5, which, is an apt description of that story, I guess. Like, fair play. It's not a very good story, though.
It's not.
I'm going to come out and say.
It's not.
It is the height of Costa not knowing what the hell to do with a bunch of robots, because he's got it into his head that robots, like, can't have, like, human feelings. The worst bit, and I reread this earlier today in full, because I've not made a point of really rereading that story ever, believe it or not. And just, it's probably not an entire half an issue, but it certainly felt like it, of just Spike and Optimus blathering at each other about sort of meaningless, fluffy kind of nonsense that's trying to sound deep and meaningful. So, I have so much to learn from humans, leadership, short lives, change so much more than... give me a break. I mean, I guess the stuff with Menasor it's like, it's not bad, I guess.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for something good to say about it. If I'm looking for more bad things to say, like, hell is up with those stupid Don Figueroa redesigns. Like,
those things are... they are ugly. Like, I
mean, if you strip away the stupid faces, they're mostly fine. Like, I mean, that Optimus design certainly lasted. Because, that lasted until the start of RID Season 2, didn't it?
Yeah.
He changed going back to Earth.
But then on the other hand, it's like there's also other redesigns that I personally am not really a fan of the Hot Rod redesign. And it's weird. I kind of like that the transformation scheme is a bit different. Like, I feel like his thighs are sort of car kibble, aren't they? But just by and large, they're kind of a lot of them are just a bit sort of over complex and weird. Yeah. I also am not really a huge fan of the blur. Especially losing that helmet. But
I was gonna say,
maybe it's just the Flash fan in me, but I dig the Mercury wings. I really do.
Yeah, it's weird. I barely recognize sort of traditional kind of like animation model based or toy based blur heads as being blur. I'm so used to his IDW design with the kind of chevron on the front, and the kind of Mercury wings and stuff.
I'll say this in defense of for one good thing that this does is this does have almost a whole issue that is Thundercracker, which would eventually get us to the point where we are now with Thundercracker.
That's something good to say about this book. Yeah.
So,
it's ground zero for kind of Thundercracker becomes a television enthusiast.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely not great. Especially like if you're like me and you picked up, you picked this up when you were first trying to get into the IDW comics.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, and the fact that the Bumblebee miniseries takes place in between issues of this as like a complete story, that's definitely a detriment to it. And of course Ultra Magna shows up and he's like just acting like total jackass, and of course Spike is like, this is honestly probably, this is really bad Spike being all like, yeah, he's cool and badass
kind of Spike didn't become just completely intolerable until Costa. No, all Hell Megatron Spike is just kind of like he's there. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, Costa Spike is just the worst. And like, I don't know, obviously eventually he is revealed to be a bastard, but like, are you supposed to like Spike at the start of the series? I genuinely can't tell. Like, yeah. If his if his terrible behavior is supposed to like endear him to us or not.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely like, I can't tell if Costa wants us to like him, if he's one of those like, oh, he's an asshole, but he's kind of likable. But it's like, yeah, it definitely as the series would go on, but it would just be even worse. But yeah, it's. So,
and he looks kind of weird because Don Figueroa's humans aren't that great.
No, really. Yeah, so. All right, so
I also like the way this series introduces a vast number of Autobots hanging around the base, and then they proceed to never again appear in the series.
Yeah.
Just, why put them there in the first place? Like, it's not like they were there. It's not like there were people who were already on Earth in All Hail Megatron. You didn't need to randomly put sea spray hanging around the Autobot base with a name card introducing like all of them and everything. It's weird.
Yeah, and not even like doing fun stuff with the name cards like John Barber would later do, but just kind of yeah. Did Huffer do anything? I honestly don't remember Huffer doing anything in this.
Ultra Magnus asks him to fetch him Energon. I read Earliest Day. I remember you see Huffer once, and then Ultra Magnus says, "Tell Huffer to bring me Energon." That's what Huffer does there.
Yeah. So
it's just and because Ultra Magnus, he disappears after this arc until I think like Revenge of the Decepticons. Like I feel like Brawn as well, maybe. Yeah, just. It's the cost ongoing is just bad in general, but yeah, this is definitely the bottom end of the cost ongoing.
Yeah. So, alrighty. So then,
it can be real low.
Let's rank it. Yep. So I think we're looking about where we were like earlier. So I guess the question is, would you say it's worse than All Hail Megatron?
No, because stuff does happen in it. The art has some level of visual appeal.
In All Hail Megatron?
Oh, no, sorry, yeah, no. Yeah, so yeah, this is better than Fall of G.I. Joe, definitely, I'll say.
Okay. Yeah. Is it better than Hearts and Minds?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is actually kind of, this is...
I think the thing here... I feel like I sort of actively dislike this more than Hearts and Minds. But Hearts and Minds is so insubstantial. Like, so incredibly insubstantial.
Yeah, but... it's one of those things. Hearts and Minds is is insubstantial. But this is like this. I feel like it's one of those things where you have to choose between what is boring and what like actively does like is bad,
yeah,
it's it's like like that's a question that I think will be interesting to ask ourselves when we eventually get to something like something like that we've covered on this podcast before, where we have to like consider what is like the bad versus the boring, and sort of like what is it to inspire, to piss you off is inspiring something versus like Hearts and Minds, which inspired nothing, but it's inspiring something in you, which is what a story is supposed to do, but it's not. Is that a good thing or a bad thing when a story pisses you off? So I would be comfortable placing it either above or below Hearts and Minds. It's really one of those, but yeah, it's a tough. I think it either goes below or above Hearts and Minds.
Yeah, it's definitely worse than All Hail Megatron, because All Hail Megatron, there are things to enjoy about All Hail Megatron.
Yeah,
it's decompressed and it's needlessly G1-y, but like I said, there's lots of great moments in All Hail Megatron. The art is very nice compared to this, where like huge amounts of this is boring and the art is kind of rubbish, and it's just poorly conceived in a lot of ways. I'd say my gut feeling is below Hearts and Minds, just because like Hearts and Minds is better what it sets out to do than this, maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I was about to be like, my gut was telling me below Hearts and Minds, but it was also like, am I giving Hearts and Minds too much credit? But yeah, so
like Hearts and Minds, like, but it doesn't like aspire to be much, and it's just kind of inoffensive and bland and inoffensive, whereas this is kind of like actively kind of disappointing and boring.
That is an excellent point. That clenches it. So For All Mankind goes below Hearts and Minds. Still not the worst thing. Still not the worst yet, but yep. So there we go. All right, so there it is. It is in there at number 10. All right, thank you so much, Broadside, for the list, and we will cover your other list when we get to the right timing.
When will that be? When did Lost Light? Well, yeah, if we were going to say we were going to cover it from 7.
Lost Light, July?
Oh yeah, so yeah, once we get to July
of this year. So, yeah. But then we'll be able to revisit it, with freshness in our minds and looking back at the, other issues. All right, all right. Next list comes from Razor Primer, again on the Allspark, and he suggested first off Spotlight Shockwave, or at least that's what I have written down first off. So might as well cover it. So Shockwave, the first Spotlight issue. And generally, pretty solid story. I mean, this is, this kind of set the stage for what the Spotlights in terms of Transformers would be, stories focused very much on, single characters. But really, I feel like it also set the stage where it's, it's not just going to be about this one character. We're also going to have, other characters, because that's the thing, because the Dinobots are also a huge factor in this, and and it's also it's definitely set the stage for a lot of stuff, like exploring the Regenesis project, and setting the stage for later story arcs involving Shockwave and the Dinobots, and that's the thing, and pretty much I think every Spotlight is it's one of those things. It's yes, technically it's a spotlight on this character, but it also usually factors some other major characters into building sort of the universe that Furman was going for. In this case, it's the Dinobots, or in Ultra Magnus, it's Shockwave, or not Shockwave, Scorponok or Swindle, that kind of thing.
The spotlights are kind of absolute. They were as much kind of a vehicle for Furman to sort of start introducing future plot points as they were to do kind of actual character spotlights.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, Shockwave is probably one of the more standalone ones, I'd say.
Yeah.
In the kind of...
Yeah, it's honestly...
You could happily hand it to someone who hasn't read any IDW stuff and they'd go and fine with it.
Yeah. I would say later writers actually focused more on the focusing on the individual characters. Like, for instance, I like Cliff Jumper or Blur. Those are pretty much all about the characters, versus something like Shockwave or Hot Rod. Hot Rod's a whole Magnificence and Double Dealer thing. But let's focus just on Spotlight Shockwave, because it's what this is about.
Yep.
And it is a good, one-issue story. It's it's kind of a throwback to what was it, to the 6th or 7th? It was an early issue of the Marvel series.
Yeah.
Where the Dinobots and Shockwave fight. It's a nice, solid story that very much focuses on Shockwave, as well as introduces the Dinobots and his rivalry in that regard. So,
it's kind of fantastic Nick Roach art.
Oh yeah,
I think is it Roach and Bertram? I think again, I want to say, it is, and kind of a very good showing for both. And like, I do really like the conceit in this of kind of the Dinobots. Well, what would the Dinobots look like if they were Beast Wars characters instead? It's kind of a fun way of approaching kind of designs for the Dinobots. Although, it did mean that we ended up with those kind of unnecessarily grey Dinobot designs for years. Like, I'm sure I remember like Nick Roach saying on Twitter that kind of, if he kind of knew that those kind of like skinned Dinobot designs were going to be like what they had for kind of a decade afterwards, he'd have made them a bit more kind of visually interesting.
Yeah.
But they're very nice designs. Yeah. And like nice action, and like if we're talking about things in terms of sort of impact on the entire universe, like Spotlight Shockwave, the Regenesis project, like basically everything that happens in this universe.
Oh yeah, and again, not just Transformers, but literally. The fact is, this one issue, the events of it led to Revolutionaries number 5. They led to ROM Annual. They led to the Revolution event itself.
Technically, it's still not confirmed, but I think it probably is going to get confirmed in that Unicron Zero issue.
They use the word "or."
Yeah, it's all but confirmed.
It's obvious. It's like we are smart people. Okay, we can figure this out. Anyways, but yes, Spotlight Shockwave. So, let's see, where would it go? Now, this is one of our single issue. It was a single issue story. So,
my sort of gut snap reaction is maybe between Cobra and Ironhide.
I was actually looking at that exact place, so that's definitely... Cobra has a bit more of a punch to it, I think. It's like... Yeah,
kind of... Cobra is it's kind of a bit more kind of like character kind of emotional stuff going on. Yeah. It's sort of... Cobra has a very nice... And Cobra does some very nice kind of aesthetic things, like if we're going to start getting all sort of like capital A space capital E space capital S aesthetic about it.
Yeah. So
Cobra and Ironhide is the gap, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes. That's a perfect place for it. So So there's Spotlight Shockwave taking the number 6.
Kind of, it's very. I feel like a Spotlight Shockwave. It's a very kind of iconic IDW issue in a way. It's sort of it's one of kind of the IDW issues that kind of, because I think possibly IDW still offer it for free on Comixology.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, This one was something we mentioned on our first ever segment. So, Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, Heart of Darkness, yeah. Ain't Heart of Darkness a thing? It's Heart of Darkness is
book.
It's the peak of, like, yeah, it's got sort of, well, it's a collision of lots of things. We've got sort of guest writers who just don't even get close to sort of accurate character voices for characters. We've got a guest artist who just, like, doesn't have a clue how to draw Transformers, like, poor guy. Like, because like, the lobster people, fantastic lobster people. Ulysses Farinas can do a bang-up lobster person, but he can't do robots. I'm so sorry, but he just really struggles to draw robots in a way that doesn't result in them looking really silly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and can I just say, as a personal thing, it's like, this is Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. And this is what you do?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, this is DNA, Legion Lost, the Guardians of the Galaxy reinvention, in the 2008, Annihilation no. Or it's like you did so many great things over at Marvel, and this is disappointing, honestly.
It's oh gosh.
I mean, to be fair, they were supposed to like take over and do the ongoing. So
oh yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah.
But it's like, if that was the case, it's like this. I don't even know if you could actually hear that, but no.
I'm flipping through this now and I've forgotten just how bad some of the robot art is.
I mean, the art is real bad. It's like
just
the robot.
The splash panel here where kind of Galvatron's head is just like ludicrously tiny, like it's so teeny tiny. It's like kind of.
Or there's that great big dull surprise one where he's like in the corner. Ugh.
Oh, the infamous kind of gulping.
So, okay.
I also like in issue 1. Like here's a fun. Wait, is it issue 1? I think it's issue 1. Let me check. It's issue 1. So issue 1 somehow managed to get produced such that there was an odd number of pages between splash pages. So IDW had to, for the floppy, insert an advert halfway through the story, which isn't a thing that IDW normally does, obviously, and then they had to add an actual extra page of like artwork for the trade paperback afterwards.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. I've also just seen like RC here at the end of the first issue with her like creepy stomach, and
No, thank you. It's not a good book. It's really,
and to give equal bad press here, like just the writing and like Scourge and Cyclone. Well, actually no, Scourge hadn't. Oh, actually no. Scourge was first in that Hell Megatron Coda story, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Actually, wait, yeah, because it's not the one. Yeah, the All Hell Megatron Coda written by Andy Schmidt, in which he forgets which one of the Dead Universe crew was the one who could stay in the normal universe, and also just decides no, Scourge was totally there all along. Great job, Andy Schmidt.
So let's rank this. Let's rank Heart of Darkness. I'm looking towards the bottom.
I would just above Fall of G.I. Joe, but no higher. I would say.
Yeah.
Stuff happens in it. Like literally any comic in which things happen, I think basically automatically pulls up above Fall of G.I. Joe. Like, it could be bad, but if things happen in it, it gets points. But it's worse than Things Fall Apart, I'd say. No doubt.
And to be fair, I mean, if my memory serves, this is one of, if not like one of the first interactions between like RC and Galvatron, which would...
I suppose it probably is. It probably is.
Would go on to inform their characters later. I mean,
although actually, I saw someone tweeting about this the other day. It does also, though, give us a incredibly uncomfortable, in hindsight, cover where RC is essentially just kind of humping Galvatron's leg.
Okay.
You know that one cover?
Okay. Reading again. I read in the digital trade, so I do not remember this.
Check the Hearts of Darkness issue 4 cover.
Oh God!
Isn't that uncomfortable? It's terrible just to begin with, but hilariously uncomfortable in hindsight.
I mean, are we sure we don't want to put it below the Fall of G.I. Joe just for this cover alone? Are we sure? Because it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad cover. It's pretty bad.
It is. It's true.
Okay, so, but all right. We'll keep it there. All right. So, Heart of Darkness, the second worst thing in this story of this universe. Oh gosh. Okay, and finally, let's see. G.I. Joe, the Helix special. I don't remember if that issue actually had like a story title, so I just wrote it down.
No, it's just G.I. Joe Special Helix.
All right, so Helix. I don't know. I don't know. This was. I'll be honest. I read this. I hadn't reached this point in my Joe reading yet, so it's like I read it. I went ahead and skipped towards it for this podcast. I mean, it wasn't great, but I don't know. It was terrible.
It's kind of like, I don't know. It's a bit of an exercise in sort of, just like, I don't know. Just sort of, it's that vaguely uncomfortable sort of like thing of sort of. Like, Helix is a really badly written character until Revolution, basically. Before Revolution, Helix's job in the ongoing series was mostly just to hang around Snake Eyes and sort of, like, repeat what he's, like, explain what he's thinking about for the benefit of the audience.
Yeah.
And sort of follow him around like a sort of irritating puppy that Snake Eyes clearly doesn't actually want around.
Yeah.
But, like, this kind of... Like, I'd forgotten what this one-shot was like, but it's sort of weird. It's sort of, to me, it's sort of like...
Yeah. And like, legit question. This issue made me think, is Helix supposed to be Asian? Like, because she's drawn like it. But I feel like in every other appearance she's made, she's always, like, drawn as if she was white. Like...
Well, yeah, no, you're not wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, so I don't know. And quite frankly, I also have to kind of tilt my head at the whole, like, she's autistic line. It's like, and then Hawk says, like, no, like he doesn't confirm it, but he doesn't deny it. He's like, no one knows what she is. It's like, I have to kind of tilt my head and raise an eyebrow at that and be like,
it's essentially kind of, it's very before its time, and G.I. Joe Special Helix was like being sort of vaguely uncomfortable and slightly fetishizing kind of like mental conditions years before Sherlock ever did it. Like,
so all right, so we'll start.
I mean, other than it's I don't know.
It doesn't have a huge impact, though. It's not like a...
No.
It's not like a...
I mean, it barely even fits into continuity.
Yeah.
Like, it's because this in this one shot kind of, like, Cobra is a thing that Hawk and Duke know about, and it's like, oh yes,
Yeah.
I sent her undercover 2 months ago to investigate Cobra. G.I. Joe doesn't even, Hawk doesn't even, accept that Cobra exists until, issue, 12 or so of the original Joe ongoing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure even where this would fit into kind of, continuity between issues of the ongoing.
I can tell you that the IDW collection, which I have in digital, it puts it just before Infestation and G.I. Joe 23 in its collection.
Oh, okay, yeah, so 23 is, I think, the issue when she first appears in the ongoing, so that makes sense, I guess.
So they could maybe squeeze it, but it's not. It's just, even on top of, the slightly uncomfortable stuff, it's just not a very... It's not a great or even standout... it doesn't really do anything to stand out. It's just... hey, here's this new character from this video game, let's, that Hasbro evidently liked enough to make a figure of, and so, we're gonna use her too, and, it's not a very impactful story, quite frankly. So, I don't know, I would say it definitely goes below the Cobra Commander, the history of Cobra Commander.
Oh, totally, yeah.
I don't know. Does it go below? I'd say it goes below All Hail Megatron, honestly.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Just because All Hail Megatron does have those moments. It does have those moments where it's that are cool, that makes you go, "Oh, that's cool," And
actually, talking about just sort of vague uncomfortableness as well. We've got the whole sort of thing as well of just female character goes undercover. It's not specified. Technically not quite a phone sex line, but almost.
Yeah.
It's very sort of... It gets, very into lots of sort of mysterious, sexy lady, spy girl kind of tropes. It's just this is tiresome.
So... Alright, so below All Hail Megatron. Below Hearts and Minds?
Yes, I think Hearts and Minds sort of isn't incompetent, it's just sort of a bit sort of lightweight.
Yeah.
I put it I think between Hearts and Minds and Things Fall Apart is what I'd lean to. Because I wouldn't say this is active. Nothing about this issue is kind of incompetent, I would say.
Yeah. The same
Whereas
way,
there are definitely things that are incompetent about Things Fall Apart.
Alrighty. So yeah.
Cool.
So that will finish us up. We really filled out the bottom of the list this time. For any of you listeners who would like to submit stories to us for this. For our ranked segment, be sure to submit at your max is 3 stories. Submit them. You can either do it through our action and adventure thread on allspark.com's forums. You can send them to us via Twitter with the hashtag rankedsubmit, or you can email them to us at hasbrouniversepodcast@gmail.com with the with ranked submission in your subject. We do 3, max number of suggestions at one time is 3, and no story, and the story has to be at least a year old for us to rank it. But yes, thank you to all who submitted to in this episode. So Callum, what's next week's comics?
I think the next fortnight is just Optimus Prime 15 and Rom and the Micronauts 2. At least last time I checked.
See, my listing has lost number 13 on that, but maybe that got changed.
Oh, actually, I might not have picked that up because I normally do it off of my Comixology subscriptions list thing, and if I'd checked before 12 come out, I might not have noticed. What's Comixology saying at the minute? It will now take 5 minutes to find out because Comixology is the slowest website known to man.
See, I use Comic List. They are...
Yeah. It's probably the more sensible approach, but yeah, I got the habit of just doing it by checking my kind of series subscription thing Oh no, yeah, 24th of January, Lost Light number 13.
Yeah. So yeah, that should be a solid week. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please, check us out on, more episodes out on our Libsyn page, HasbroUniverse.libsyn.com, on allspark.com, on our iTunes. We're on iTunes, and if you're on iTunes, leave us a review. That's one of the best ways you can help us out. We're on Google Play, and we're on YouTube, and we're on... That's it. I'm trying to get us on Spotify, though. That's the one thing I'm working on. And, of course, if you want to find us on social media, you can find us at Hasbro U Podcast on Twitter. We're on Tumblr at HasbroUniversePodcast.tumblr.com. Callum, where can our listeners find more of you on the internet?
I can be found all over the place, sort of your various social medias, Twitter, Tumblr, that kind of thing, and on Transformers web forums, Transformers Wiki, IDW Hasbro Wiki, all under the username Jalaguy, Jala Guy, and you'll find me sort of probably, like, as I have been today, arbitrarily singing the praises of revolutionaries, or just sort of taking the piss out of things that I think are stupid, like...
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Daniel Adkins PRD. You can find, I'm usually hanging around the usual Transformers places. Thank you, ladies, gentlemen, non-binary folks everywhere, for listening to this show, and we will see you all next time.
Yeah. Bye.
It is a time when magic is more powerful than science, and only those who control the magic control destiny. They are the Visionaries.
Knights of the magical light. Visionaries, magical powers they fight. Powers of light between skill and speed. Powers of greatest stories. Visionaries, knights of the magical light.
See, the universal greeting works every time.